We say evolving is the point, and then we become attached to who we see people as in our life, or we find that others are attached to the projection of who we are. I wonder what it is about change that's so scary. I think maybe because we don't know what's on the other side of change. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot because I'm coming up on the anniversary of 1 year of traveling. And I've been thinking about how much I've changed along this journey. Well, both changed and also got to see myself in a way. Like there's an element of the traveling where I came face to face with just like who I am, and maybe even like the shadow parts of myself or parts of myself that I'm choosing no longer to be, you know? In that path of meeting myself along this journey, I got to see more of myself. I got to see myself as courageous, and I got to see myself as adventurous, and I got to see myself at the depths of, what am I doing next, or what even am I doing? And figuring it out. And then as I look to this next year, the traveling isn't over. There's more to this journey. I'm pondering like what I want to step into. And what's interesting is that what I am looking forward to stepping into now couldn't have been what I did at the beginning, right? At the beginning, I was just facing the extreme fear of letting go of where I was living in the United States and throwing my stuff in storage and just going off across the ocean to see who I would become, or like expand my perspective on the world. And that version of me did everything that they could do at the time, right? Like what I saw myself do in the first month would be like just so easy for me now. What I saw myself do in that next month, where I stretched a little bit farther, I'm like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, I could do that. And so now as I look towards this next year of how else I want to actually stretch myself and grow and connect more with people, it's really powerful to see how it stands atop the shoulders of who I used to be. Like everything I will become stands atop the shoulders of who I've been. And that's really powerful. I remember I actually had that exact thought my last birthday, which was last May, when I was entering my last year of my 30s. I don't know. I feel like it's a state of mind. I'll probably be in my 30s forever. In a way. But then maybe not, Like there's that sense about change. Age can mean whatever it means to you, and change can be whatever that means to you, and if it's related to your age, then cool. But I remember when I first had that thought about basically this position now that I'm in, and that it's sort of on this continuum of evolution. And as we look forward and we think of all the things that we want to become and want to do and we haven't gotten to yet, sometimes it's really powerful to take that moment to position yourself again in the present and then look back from that sense of gratitude, because you have that vision for the future because of what you've already accomplished, right? Like what I was thinking about accomplishing this time last year was just getting on a plane and going across the world and stepping in a different country, and like that was as far as I could think about it because that sounded terrifying. And then now I've done that like a bunch of times. And so as I ponder what's next, this moment could only come from what I've already done. I feel like that's really powerful because I know for me, I can get really focused on kind of discounting the past and being like, oh, I haven't done enough, I haven't created enough, I haven't accomplished enough, blah, blah, blah. Because I have some sort of metric in my mind and it only counts if it looks like this. And so it's really powerful for me to really acknowledge and relax into the reality of the fact that it's always been evolution. Every step I've taken has been evolution. Even when I felt stuck, I was still evolving. I was meeting that stuckness at a new level of consciousness in a way. Like I was meeting that stuckness on a new day and moving through it in a new way, or even in just the same way, but at a level deeper. So how much we discount everything because we have some kind of metric and some weird way of looking at ourselves in life and timelines and things, and not really crediting ourselves, celebrating, giving ourselves credit. I feel like language is so interesting. Like giving ourselves acknowledgement for what this moment now means, even if we're in the midst of something really tough. We are facing it with the evolution of everything we've been through up until this moment. We can't discount that. That's really, really powerful. And I've had those moments too where I would meet what seemed like the same issue again. And every time before I would be like, this is the last time I'm facing this issue. Without really much of a plan of how to fix it, But I would have that thing. I'd be like, I'm going to will myself to never face this again. But as I look back, I see that every time I faced it, I actually was evolving, even though it seemed like I was looping back and like falling back into a similar issue. I realize now, I'm like, actually, even if it was small, I learned more about myself. There was a step forward that occurred, even if it's just to get through that moment. That's huge. Like, why don't we see that? I want to acknowledge that more. I want to be more okay with really acknowledging myself for my life. And what this has to do with change is that, especially around stuckness, I think we can get really down sometimes. And even leading to like different levels of depression or whatnot, because we've decided we haven't changed enough. There's a lot of enoughness that falls into our self-criticism and that feeds into our self-criticism. So there's the element of change where we fear change and we're afraid of what's on the other side because we don't know what it is. There's that whole, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. Like you'd rather, like our mind or nervous system would rather stay with the thing that we're familiar with, because at least we understand it, than face what could be a threat we don't know. Because the nervous system reads that as like a survival moment. Like, well, what if I don't know that it's unsurvivable? And the thing is, none of us are getting out of here alive. In the end of it, Like, there will be a moment where we actually don't survive the change, whatever it is. Could be the old age. And I hope that for everybody, right? That the thing that changed that we didn't survive was just the fact that we lived so long and we experienced so much, right? So like there's an element of truth in that fear. Even at the core of it, around survival. There's an element of truth in that. And yet, what dies when we don't step into whatever that next thing is? And I think it can be something more precious than just wasting time staying the same. But it is our dreams and our vision. It is that impetus in ourself to evolve, the reason we're alive. Taking this really a powerful, unique moment that statistically is practically impossible that you are even here as you specifically. It's like 1 in a trillion chances that you specifically are here. And so then we have that, right? Both that, the fear of the change, as well as the fear of not changing. And we'll also get there. Like I was talking about the sense of stuckness, that we can be in this feeling, this internal narrative that we've decided we're stuck because we're facing a challenge that seems similar to the last one. It may not even actually be the same thing as the last one. Are you in the exact same place? Are you not X amount of days older? Have you not seen X amount of sunrises and sunsets and the moon and like it's not the same. And likely it's more different than even those little things I'm mentioning. Because you also, even at the most essential element or level, is someone who is facing this, who got through it last time. Even if that was the 20th time you faced the thing. You're someone who's gotten through it 20 times. And then the next time, it'll be 21 times. So you can't actually be stuck. It's almost impossible. It's pretty much impossible because something has changed, whether you want to see that or not. But the thing that's getting you feeling stuck is the narrative you have around what's happening. And when we begin to realize that, you can reclaim so much of your power by realizing it's the narrative, which means how I'm telling myself the story of what this means, or what I'm telling myself about what this means, what story I'm making of this, what meaning I'm making of this. This is the narrative that I've crafted around this moment. And when I would come to that experience of that perspective I was talking about in regard to really appreciating the moment right now, and how this moment is me standing atop the shoulders of every moment that happened before this moment, and then moving into the moments that are coming next, right? My present self stands atop the shoulders of my past self as I walk into my future self. I don't know. I feel like I said it more eloquently earlier. Why was I saying that? Right. That the perspective shift in that moment, realizing that I'm on a continuum, I'm on this path of evolution, changes how I feel about this moment, present moment, right? How I feel about whatever I'm facing, even if I feel like I've faced it before. Oh, actually, I am evolving. Oh, actually, things have changed. Even despite my mind telling me it hasn't. My mind is not correct, apparently. And that's okay. It's okay to admit when our mind has been telling us a story that actually isn't true. Because we get to then choose what story we want to tell ourselves. And we get to craft and own and take ownership over the narrative that we live by. And you would be amazed at what that does when you allow yourself to own and choose the narrative of your life. So, what does this moment mean for you right now? Have you been feeling stuck? Have you been feeling excited? Have you been feeling fear of what could happen? What narrative do you want to claim in this moment? Is it that you're courageously facing a fear? Is it that you realize you're actually not stuck because something, even something small, has changed from the last time? And, oh look, I can now appreciate the fact that I actually have faced this. And even though it feels familiar, maybe there's an element of why that keeps showing up because it feels familiar. I know, actually even more at a certainty, even more at a certain level within me, that I can move through this. Or if I'm excited. The narrative of everything that I've been choosing and I can appreciate and I'm proud of about this next phase of my life, right? Or this next thing that I'm entering into. Because you notice too, as they talk about fear, I remember, I forget where I heard it, but people say this a lot, right? That fear within your body, the sensations of fear are actually the same as excitement, like physiologically. Excitement and fear are like the same thing physiologically. We just have a different story about what it is. We feel sort of butterflies and like whatever in our body. And sometimes we tell ourselves, oh, this means I'm excited. And so we welcome the sensations and we lean into it and we actually enjoy it. But then we can have that same sensation, the same things coming up. And we tell ourselves, oh, I'm afraid. And then we reject and we try to push down and we try to get away from the feelings. We don't celebrate it. We fear it more. We push back. We get clamped down. Ultimately, it's a story that we're telling ourselves. So how much more power does that then mean that our stories have? Not that a story makes it not real, because you're very much feeling a real experience within your body, whether you've called it excitement or fear. But what the story does is it helps us relate to what's happening and then gather resources, right? If my story is, I'm afraid, I don't know how to face this, I lose access to those resources I might have, like my own creativity, my own creative problem solving, my own ability to see different possibilities. And maybe you've noticed that when you're afraid and your mind sort of zeroes in and like clamps up, and now there's no way beyond this thing. Right? But if I'm having an adventure and I'm excited, I'm actually looking for possibilities. We open up to receiving the resources that are available to us, because you are much more resourced than you think. Like, you're built to be a creative being. However that shows up, creativity is not just art in the classic sense of painting or dancing or music. Creativity is like an element of being alive, in my opinion, because your brain had to creatively problem solve all the things, how you're doing at work. It had to figure things out. It had to learn, and that to me is an element of creativity. The ability to learn, to access new information, filter it in, use it in a new way. And it comes back to that story. The story that's not a lie, but it can be something that we take ownership of. It's not meaningless. It's actually really powerful. So yeah. So, we're looking at change, as we move into this new year, I'm coming up upon my travel anniversary. And I'm looking at the narrative of how I want to look at this past year, and then where I want to go next. Like, I've had moments where I've looked at this past year, and there were some tough moments, and I made choices out of feeling like a lack of resources. And then I made the story around oh, well, sure, you're on an adventure, but you had to choose certain things because you couldn't choose maybe what you really wanted. But then if I look back and I go, actually, I've had quite the adventure. I've learned a lot. I've been very resourceful. And I'm excited. And all of that has given me this capability around travel that I didn't have. And that maybe I wouldn't have had if it was easier. and so now I'm looking at this next year, and my vision for what I would like travel to be and what I want to see in the world and who I want to be is bigger than last year. And I have this sense of being able to do it that I built from moving through all those moments. And I can see that when I open myself to that story, that narrative, that perspective, if you would like to call it that. Because story and narrative isn't to diminish what's happening. It's you're really changing a perspective and opening a whole different way of seeing what's happening and looking at yourself. So yeah, so I'm curious for you. What are you moving into that's different or new in this new year? How have you been looking at it thus far? Is that how you want to look at this moment now and what you want to create and what has happened? Is that how you want to look at it? Or is there something else? Is there another way that you could look at it that actually allows you to access that ownership over your own narrative? One that's empowering, I mean, that's kind of implied in what I'm saying, right? Taking ownership over the narrative is so that it empowers you. So I'm not going to take ownership over it and then tell myself that I've failed everything. No, that's the criticism, Those are the narratives we were given from ways we were told to look at the world and who we had to be and what we had to accomplish by whatever date. But when you own it, you get to decide what it is and how you're going to look at it so that it can be empowering. There's always a part of my mind that can't give up entirely. I've had some low moments, really tough moments. But there's something in my brain that goes I just can't, there's nothing pragmatic about giving up. It doesn't make any sense. What happens then? You're still there. The day still moves on. It doesn't make any sense. You basically can't give up. That's just the end of existing, and I'm just not willing to do that. So maybe there's a dual thing happening. I'm not willing to end existing, and which then means you cannot give up. There's no other way of looking at it. There's no pragmatic reason. There's no reason to to just take on a narrative of giving up or hopelessness, you know? Now, granted, I know that sometimes we learn it based on the systems that we live under, or if we really are struggling with mental health, like that, it can be part of what's occurring. So, you know, I always advocate too that if that's something that you're facing, that's not, that even in those dark moments that you can't kind of access that, at least what happens in my own mind, right? Then there's resources and there's people around. And that's actually a huge thing too, to know that you're not alone in change, whether you're in a low moment or a high moment. You don't have to do any of it alone. You can have community, you can have resources, you can reach out. We can have these online relationships as well, connections. I want to hear. So, speaking of, I want to hear about, if you would like to share in the comments, what part of your narrative that you're owning and how that is contributing to this next year for you, or this next whatever for you. Maybe it's the next week. So yeah, so for me, it was really looking at this present moment as standing atop, I know I said this a bunch of times, but like standing atop all the things that happened this last year, even when it was really hard, and how that has made me see and embody capability that I didn't have at the beginning of last year, and now I do. And that allows me to move into an even greater vision this next year. So that's something I'm excited about. So you tell me, what's something you're excited about in regard to how you're owning your narrative in a new and empowering way. My name is Lux. Join me here as we talk about life and things and relationships and alternative ways of being or just self-directed ways of being. Yeah, I look forward to this. I'll see you again very soon.